All right, next one. Do you recommend a trust over a will? If yes, what kind of trust, living, revocable, or irrevocable? And so I don't think a trust is better than a will. A trust is something that you add on to a will. So when something happens to you and you die, then the property that you own, the things that you own, get distributed to your heirs. And if you don't have any kind of plan, then there's a complicated legal set of rules that says, okay, if you're married, if you have kids, if you don't, these are how it gets distributed. And that can be a kind of a frustrating and challenging process. And so having a will greatly makes life easier for your heirs and your dependents, for the people who come after you, because it allows you to specify clear instructions on um, and what you want to happen with your possessions. So, hey, I want my spouse to have it, or I want this to get distributed to my kids, or I don't have a spouse and I don't have kids. I want it to go to this charity or that charity, or to my brother, or whatever. So having a will is absolutely necessary. Now, a trust makes life simpler in some cases, because what happens is, and I'm sorry, I'm going to just make this a little bit simpler, but I'm going to give up some technical detail, so forgive me for oversimplifying this. But essentially, you transfer possession of some of your belongings, like your house, like your bank account or whatever. You put them into the name of the trust. And then what happens is when you pass, the control of those assets and immediately transfers to the people that you appoint in your trust documents. Whereas the transfer that happens in a will takes months or sometimes years, the transfer of these assets that are in the trust happens the moment you become unable to manage your own trust. And so that can be really good in situations where, for example, you have kids and you need to make sure that they're cared for. So if you want to make sure that your house, your bank account, or whatever is available to them, and that you've appointed someone in your life to care for them, then a trust makes that process go a lot simpler, a lot smoother, and it makes it, I'm not going to say effortless, but close to effortless. Likewise, if you have a business and you want to make sure that control of that business is handled in a certain way, a trust is one way to do that. And typically, what we will do is a combination of a trust and some business documents to control that. So a trust can be very, very handy for business owners, because you can say, I want my business to be in this trust, and I want my house to be in that trust, and I want my real estate investments to be in a different trust. You can set up different rules for what happens in each of those situations. And the nice thing is, again, they take effect right away. So a living, revocable, irrevocable trust, what's the difference? So a living trust and a revocable trust tend to be the same thing. So usually when we say living trust, we mean a revocable trust. What happens is when you die, that trust becomes irrevocable. And what that means is the rules that you set up can no longer be changed, except for what the documents say. So a trust includes a kind of document, a complex legal document that says, if this happens, then I want these rules to kick into effect. An irrevocable trust is meant to be unchangeable from the get-go. And an irrevocable trust is a lot of work. So first of all, if you are the owner of the possessions that you're transferring in, and then you are also the person who manages the trust, then um, that's not going to be the right situation. Usually, when we set up an irrevocable trust, we need to appoint somebody other than you to be a manager for the trust. And this is something that happens when people use companies like Anderson Consultants to set up real estate management, and that's why it can be so complicated to make changes. Is because you're no longer in charge of those assets. You got to ask permission for someone else. I'll just tell you some situations where I think an irrevocable trust is really good. If, for example, you want to make sure um, that, let's just say, for example, let's say you've got a farm, and you want to make sure that when you're gone, the assets of the farm are used for the benefit of your spouse. But then when that person no longer needs those assets, either they die or they need to go into a nursing home or something, then transfer of those possessions goes to other people in a certain fashion, then a trust is the right way to do that. And that often is going to be irrevocable. Likewise, when a person is not trustworthy to manage their own assets, irrevocable trust can be the right way to go. Sometimes people use irrevocable trusts a um, as a way to avoid losing control of assets in a lawsuit. That doesn't tend to work as well as you think. And so there's these things called charging orders, which is a topic that I think we should probably come up with in a different event. But these irrevocable trusts can be undone if a person is trying to avoid paying their own liabilities. And then also, to irrevocable trusts, they come with I mean, they're just hard to manage. And so again, if you say I've got $100 million, I'm going to say, yeah, let's talk about an irrevocable trust. If you say, I've got $1 million, I'm going to say, let's talk about ways to manage your risk that are simpler for you on a day-to-day basis rather than an irrevocable trust. But a revocable trust, a living trust, that actually can be very, very beneficial because it can make it easier for you to provide resources to your heirs when you're gone. And so for that reason, a living or revocable trust can be a very, very good way to make sure that your assets, your business, your investments go on to the next generation in a way that is easy and simple. By the way, in December, I'll be doing a special. So if you want to set up a trust or a will, or if you want to talk through your succession planning needs for your business, December is the time to do that. So make sure that you are subscribed to our social media posts so that you get notified when that happens. I see there's a question on the tax benefits for a will versus a trust, and the answer is that is way too complicated of a question to answer in this video. But in short, there is no major tax benefits in the general cases. And so the thing is the trust is a pass-through entity. So if any assets that are in the trust make money or produce revenue or whatever that's taxable, that tax liability is going to pass through to whoever the people are that are benefiting from the trust, the grantor usually. So it doesn't really make much of a difference. If you're talking about passing assets on to the next generation, then if you are passing assets on to your heirs, to your direct lineal descendants, so the people, the children who were born to you or adopted to you, there's not really going to be much of a tax benefit. But if you want to talk about a different situation where you want your siblings or your business partners or whatever to be beneficiaries, that is a complicated situation, and we need to customize the solution to meet your goals.